What is up, everybody? My name is Verdict. Welcome back, guys.
I'm Grim, what's up?
Welcome, everybody, to the Grim Verdict podcast. And today we have one of the most important bits of BDO lore. We have a driving force, which we've been following for such a long time. And Grim has no clue, because I didn't tell him at the start.
No, I'm in for a surprise.
So, today we're going to tackle what can you do and how far can you go to be forgiven? And I'm going to do something, Grim. I'm going to give you a very important quote. And
All right.
I want to see if you can perhaps maybe guess it. But the quote goes as such: "A beastly stench grows and intertwines with the darkness. Some say they find this foul smell appetizing. The air seeks and reeks of nothing but frying flesh and blood, and the flames of putrid smell are glowing in the shadow." Do you got any idea what this may be and who perhaps might have said this?
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Well,
No, I can't even begin to try and unravel that.
well, here's the thing, dude. This is from a piece of content which is no longer available in the game, but used to be. This is gonna be a hint. Let's see if you can piece it up together. We had this piece of content a long time. I'm gonna give you another hint. It was originally accessible after Star's End. Do you recall that?
Altar of Blood?
Altar of Blood. All right. Now,
Yeah.
who is in Altar of Blood that tells us this quote? Someone very important. Let's see. I'm going to torture you to no end on this.
Ooh, I gotta be honest, I didn't do much Altar of Blood.
It's not about if you've done it. It's just all about the quest. And
Oh, okay.
if you can't guess it, sure, I'll tell you. But do you give up?
I remember there being like a heaps.
There are
Altar of
definitely a heaps, absolutely, but once you get inside Altar of Blood, in fact, there is a trailer with a very important figure that begins the Altar of Blood. He speaks in this raspy voice, a little bit like this, and he is kind of
Laffy
very...
Bedmountain?
No.
No?
What would Laffy do?
I don't know.
What would Laffy Bedmountain do in the
Might
Altar
be
of
describing the
Blood?
architecture or something.
I mean, he could. I mean, he would be interested in it, considering the fact that it is a place between worlds, basically what the Altar of Blood is. All right, do you want me to stop torturing you?
Yeah, go ahead. Not put me on misery.
Who is my favorite character in Black Desert Online?
Is it Caphras?
We're doing Caphras, baby! We are doing Caphras today. We are doing
finally.
Caphras. So here's the thing. I need to be honest with everyone listening right now, and you as well. We are very far from a Caphras episode, like super far. In fact, probably it's going to be, if we don't do Caphras now, it's going to be probably 4 or perhaps 5 months before we have to actually talk about Caphras. So the reason for which we're jumping so far ahead, remember that we're going onto the series canonically. But see, if we go canonically and we break the world apart, it's going to be one episode of Ataraxia, and then we go in Orzekea, then we go into Dragon and Mountain of Eternal Winter, then we go back into Orzeka, then we go into Camel, right? We're all over the place. So I was thinking, let's keep it canonical, but keep it also relevant to the regions which we are exploring currently. And I think that's just a better approach for the people that are going to listen to this. So
Makes sense, it's more digestible.
Absolutely, and the idea is not to overcomplicate it. Let's just keep it close. But Caphras is also a person who breaks this rule, because let's just summarize it. Right now, we're very heavy onto the elves, elven mythos, and what happened after they arrived. This is basically what we're doing. We established the gods, we established the fall of Elvia, and we spoke about, of course, afterwards, Sage and Ataraxian in the old times. Then we handled Orzeka, and now, of course, we gotta go back into the elves to be able to continue the elves, because we have at least a couple of episodes more before we finish them. And not to spoil for the future, but the dragon lore is not that far. Really, it isn't far at all. And dragon lore is gonna be super cool. Super cool. People, you know, one of the most unexplored, Grim, for some reason, one of the most unexplored pieces and topics in Black Desert are the dragons. Like, people still don't know what the Sherikhans is, despite the fact that it's so evidently pointed out. It's either that it's just straightforward lore with little to no theory behind it, so that makes it kind of dull, or it's the fact that just people don't care about the dragon lore video, and I think we should break this. But Grim,
Bet the Mystic main can't wait to talk about Banha.
well, I'm not even going to mention him outside of the first 2 seconds of it. Unfortunately, yeah. Banha is pretty much... Banha is just stated once and never repeated ever again. It's stupid. We don't know why that is, but yeah, it's silly. But still, what Banha tells us is groundbreaking, if we believe that Banha told us this. But anyways, let's not put Carrick in front of the horse. Man, I never thought when I engaged with BDO lore in 2000 and I don't know, for the first time, like massively in 2019 when they released Odilita Part 1, I never thought for the life of me that I'm going to fall in love with BDO lore to the extent in which I did. And Pearl Abyss have never been like really interested in building their lore, in my opinion, up until Odilita came through and they built a literal story etched into the world, and they started reworking from there the entirety of the mythos. Like Odilita, Part 1 and Part 2 were literally the peak of Black Desert. Whoever wrote that place is someone who understands what they're doing. It's just mythos on top of mythos. So let me just summarize it for the people. We're right now on our 5th episode, and we have covered probably about, I would say maybe 50% of Odilita from the past, and now we're gonna jump into Odilita into the future eventually. You get the idea. Like 10 hours of content just talking about one zone. Like, that's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good. And before we go into Caphras, something that we really got to tell is that Pearl Abyss were not really spearheading lore through Caphras up until recent times. So when we were reading about Caphras, he was just a side character with barely little to no importance, outside of just a journal, a hints here and there of who he could be. Then all of a sudden he is Orwyn, you know, not to spoil, but everybody knows that Orwyn is Caphras' daughter. I mean, this is just literally everybody knows. It's not even a spoiler at this point. And then all of a sudden you understand the impact that he had. And Pearl Abyss kept on pushing, and eventually you understand that Caphras is literally the reason why we are here. So today's bit is to understand Caphras, and not just to understand him, to really pay tribute to PA for making one of the best and most well-written characters in entirety of MMORPG history. This rivals your top favorite, I don't know, WoW character, Final Fantasy
Illidan,
character.
Arthas.
He is dwarfing Illidan and Arthas in regards to epicness. You know, every character makes mistakes. Every character goes into its tribulations, but Caphras endures more than Guts from Berserk times 10. It's kind of like this. So recently, Pearl Abyss, literally about a year or maybe a year and a half, 2 ago, when they started reworking the Balanos, we get to understand the depth of Caphras, and Pearl Abyss are right now literally spearheading the entirety of BDO lore through Caphras. Everything that we do is almost tied directly to it. So now that we set up how freaking epic Caphras is, I guess we gotta repeat ourselves a little bit, Grim, because of course his story starts in Elvia, and after all, we did cover Elvia. So we still have to go through it, and we are going to go into detail of it, perhaps a little bit more than necessary, but sorry guys if we're just going to repeat ourselves, but I'm still going to try to make it a little bit interesting by adding some brand new information. And also, Grim, I know that you may have been spoiled with my videos on Caphras, because I know you've seen both episodes. Now, what if I told you that I never finished the series?
Oh, really? Okay.
So now we have roughly, if I'm to return to the Caphras series onto my main channel, I have 2 more episodes and you have no clue of them. So
you're revealing the GLaDOS of Caphras right now.
We are, yeah, you could say that. I mean, yeah, you could say that. I guess you can.
All
so
right.
let's go into Elvia. So Caphras is a Luthragon. Of course, we know this. He is a male elf. What the Luthragons are, they're the species that are male of Elvia. Now, Caphras is born into the fortress of Aduir, and this is the last uncorrupted fortress of Elvia. It is the finale of that world. We know Elvia is either a planet or a mirror realm or something very deep entwined with us, because the way Elvia is being described as two trees sitting in a mirror ways of one another with the roots facing. And I'm going to put right now a very cool image. Grim, do you remember that one which I sent you where there is a line and there is Elvia below and our world on top with the tree's roots essentially entwined with one another? I sent you this about, I think, a week or two ago, I think, something like that. Do you recall that?
I remember something like it, yeah.
Yeah, precisely. So we're going to put this for our viewers. But essentially, there is so much depth to Elvia, and we kind of believe that it is either a part of our realm split or something along these lines, but Elvia is still a great, great, great mystery. So Caphras is born in Aduir, the last fortress with which is withstanding consistent barrage against Hadum. Right, so Hadum is there. He has been infiltrating Elvia. We spoke about this in the Elvia episode. So Hadum is pretty much about to literally overcome the entirety of the Luthragon Armada. And just so you understand, and everybody listening, Luthragons are dying in the hundreds a day. So it is a very big place, Elvia, and the Aduir fortress is huge. So Aduir is set in a Camasilv tree, which is, think of it like, it's a very smaller tree compared to what ours is in Grana, like significantly smaller. And they built the fortress Aduir with the purpose of protecting this seed, which was presumably left by Sylvia. Now, the seed sprouted eventually into a tree, which is how Caphras eventually would get here. But something very important to say is that Hadum already being here is a long, potentially, I don't know, even millennia ago. The mythos is well established to the point where Caphras himself utters to us through his journal that the idea that humanity brought Hadum to Elvia is fact. We know this for sure. So Caphras is an ingenious individual. He is thirst for knowledge in its entirety. He is, if Sage was thirst for knowledge, then Caphras makes Sage look like a baby. Caphras is a sponge for everything that you throw at him. He is literally the embodiment of desire for salvation and power. And at start, Caphras is a very good individual. He is described as determined, as someone who wishes to save his brothers, as someone who wishes to be all and nothing but good for Elvia. So
we love Caphras.
We love Caphras so much. Caphras is the best. Caphras is literally the best. God, I sound like Marty is the best. I sound lobotomized. I sound lobotomized. Okay, so Caphras is understanding the situation in Elvia. And he is, you know, if more elves fall than the elves being born, still mystery how elves are being born. We don't know how Luthragon even continue to exist. A theory is that they are recycled spirits. We do not know if that is true. It's the only theory that kind of makes sense. Recycled spirits, God knows from where and how. But more Luthragon are dying by the day than Luthragons are being produced. Let's just say it as such. So he is understanding of the situation, and he needs to find a way to bring forth salvation. So he leaves Aduir, and he says something which is kind of, it's so sad. He left Aduir as if he was never even born. This is the meat grinder which the Luthragon and Elvia are in. When someone dies, it's kind of like expected. Yeah, this is a little bit of a remark which I'm going to do right now with 40k. In 40k, it is the, you know, death is something so common to the point where, oh, he died at the age of 15. He lived a long life, pretty much. That is the entirety of the thing. And probably, at least I envision it as such, the Luthragon were in a similar situation. Not for the sakes of being teenagers, no, they're elves. They probably lived for a long time, but still, you get the idea. So Caphras leaves Aduir as if he never existed, never to be missed, but still he is super determined, and he puts a visage of a human. And we don't know if male human, female human, doesn't really matter, but one thing is for certain, and he he says this to us via the journal, is that he is going to infiltrate the Hadum-ridden humanity. So he is going to infiltrate and pose as a Hadum follower inside the masses. And from then, he begins to learn. And we don't know the nature of Caphras in reality, what was his role in Aduir. Typically, when you think of a Luthragon, you think of Archer, because that's the only Luthragon we know. But if you look at, for an example, the Camasylvian elves, the Ahib elves, you see that they're summoners, assassins, with spears and towering shields, so you know that they have different types of things. And Caphras seems to be like a wizard type of a thing. He's some sort of a sorcerer, but don't think of our wizard and our sorc. Remember, this is a different thing. He practices entirely differently. He has Luthragon magic, whatever that means. So he infiltrates the humanity, which is entirely devoted to Hadum at this point. And what he does is he learns from them, and he exchanges information with them. And slowly and steadily he learns of this forgotten god, which was the core and founding of the Godar Thea, which is the school of witches and wizards, or sages, what they call themselves in Elvia. And this is an old god, which is a forgotten god, as if he is taboo to even speak of, and his name is the Godar, the god of depravity and scorching light. We spoke about this guy, Grimm, some time ago.
Yep.
And Caphras is determination incarnate. He understands, and he starts researching, and slowly and steadily they gave Caphras such trust, the humans, to the point where they taught him everything that they would possibly know. And Caphras became one of the strongest sorcerers or wizards or mages, whatever you would like to call him, for the purpose of wielding magic in Elvia. He became overpowered there by the amount of knowledge that he has soaked. So he understood about the Godoride, and he had a fixed idea at this point. He has to summon the Godoride to bring forth salvation to Elvia, because the Godoride was a deity of super strong power. And at this entire thing, he kind of feels conflicted, because rightfully so, you are a son of Sylvia. Sylvia is everything for you, and he feels abandoned by Sylvia. First and foremost, the path which he took. Second, despite everything, Sylvia is still not with the Luthragon. They haven't heard her voice at any given time. They feel abandoned. They feel as if they're fighting against nothing for nothing. And this is something pivotal for Caphras to understand, was that he was pushed towards this predicament by none other than Hadum. See, the Godoride entity in the past was summoned to weaken the world, to raise despair into the world, because the Godoride is the god of depravity and scorching light, and to deprave people of hope leads to what, Grimm?
Ooh.
To deprave... You wonder. Of course, despair. To deprave people of hope leads to despair, and this is something very, very cool, which I interpret from the lore. So Caphras doesn't know about this. He doesn't know that the Godoride is the god of depravity. He doesn't piece this up together to the best of his ability. But at the point in which he is ready to perform a ritual, or rather begin the preparation for a ritual, an ambush by very loyal Hadum followers appear. Now, he is integrated into this, and in this ambush, everybody suspects that he is a culprit, which is, essentially an enemy, whatever this means. So the small little sect which he found himself upon, which worshipped the Godoride, was completely overthrown by the Hadum followers, and he had to flee. And then God knows how much he wandered across Elvia to look for ways to finish this entire job. But he found a forgotten altar into potentially the distant future. We do not know how much time, but he experiences and says this through many crises and through many issues or whatever he had to go through. He finally found a means to summon him. And right as he is preparing this summoning of the Godoride deity, he hears the most harrowing voice come at him. Of course, he hears Hadum. And one of the things, of course, he hears Hadum's voice, and it's resonating, but what Hadum tells him is something so devious. He tells him, "My son, stay your hand at once." And Caphras is frozen at this, because he probably at first thought it was Sylvia saying "my son," He's not entirely sure what that is, but he knows for a fact immediately afterwards, after he shakes that off, is that he is speaking to Hadum, or rather Hadum is speaking to him. And he describes it as such, and I love this quote. "Though it was a voice I had never heard before, I somehow knew who it was. As if frozen, I couldn't move nor utter a word from my lips. Only their words resonated within me." And the quote continues, "Become the world's shadow and save everyone, my son." The quote continues following, saying, "Do you believe that I detest your people? Do you think I lack the power to destroy a city as small as Aduir? If you truly wish to save your comrades, serve and follow me with your heart. Create the black sun in Idana. On the day of the moon blankets the sun and extinguishes all light, my son. Place your hand onto the Kamasilv of our world. Then you shall be led to the others who I speak of. My son, verily I say this to you, you shall enjoy eternal life, and your kinsmen shall join you in radiant glory." And this is the final of the quote. This is Caphras's, or rather, it's kind of like a one-sided conversation with Hadum. So, think about this for a moment, and we spoke about this in the Fall of Elvia episode, but think of how abandoned Caphras feels at this point. This is something that I really like to do when I'm analyzing characters in BDO. It's kind of like, don't take everything for granted in what you read. Put your heart to it, and think about what Caphras just did. So, Caphras begins to express something very interesting, because he says something, "Our mother, our creator abandoned us, yet the God who reached out to us granted eternal life to me when I sought self-destruction." This is a very important quote, because what we believe and what is not being told to us by Caphras, just based on what he is saying to us, is that Caphras understood what Gotterite is and the purpose of Gotterite being ushered into this world. He understood that Gotterite will destroy Elvia and potentially, who knows, maybe even expel Hadum for all we know, and essentially it is a self-destruct. So Hadum stops him from doing this. We do not know if it's manipulation, if it isn't, but the entirety of it seems kind of to us that is entirely orchestrated by Hadum for him to find a perfect servant. Because think of what Caphras is. A completely determined individual looking for nothing but knowledge. He is perfect to be a Hadum servant. So he drops the mantle of Eleutheragon. He is from now on known only as Caphras, and he is Caphras the Immortal, soon to be an alchemist. So he returns to Aduir, but remember, this is Caphras. He is an individual that can wear visages. Also, he's a Eleutheragon. They're going to let him in. So what he does is, under the commandments of his god, and now he says, Vuhura Kaheliak, which is, Hadum Vuhura Kaheliak is the full name of the Hadum entity, we believe. "On that day, the moon completely covered the sun. I placed my hand on the Kamasilv for thee." And Caphras breaks into the world of ours. So now Caphras is in our world. And the first thing, and the most important thing, is, where does he break off to? I mean, of course he is breaking off into Grana, because this is the mirror tree which was laid down by Mother Sylvia. So he is in Grana, and just think about this for a moment. This is something that I find very funny, actually. So you are a Ganel or a Vidir. Bear in mind, this is before their conflict. So the Elven conflict has not yet became, they haven't split. They're kind of living perfectly well with one another. No issues, at least we don't think so. And he drops in, for the first time in their lives, the elves see an elvish man. So this is something that I find very hilarious. Obviously nothing happened, but it would be very funny. And let's be honest, probably some people had a thought. Okay, some people probably had a thought. But something, in my opinion, very worth to say here is that Caphras breaks through the roots of Kamasilv and is teleported into Idana. And he says how he sees the tree of Camasilv, and he essentially describes it as, before me stood another Camasilv, larger and more imposing than the one in the realm of Elvia. An intense light unlike any I had ever witnessed momentarily blinded me. In my agony, a name escapes my lips, not that of a goddess Sylvia, but another. And he continues to say, O Vuhura Kaheliak, where are you? And this is kind of, you know, you know that he has completely renounced Sylvia. He is upset with it completely, and rightfully so, but he is in a predicament which he doesn't understand. He doesn't know that Sylvia is gone, and Sylvia is factually gone. Whatever happens with her, we will talk about in the future, but Caphras is really not understanding of this. He doesn't have the knowledge of it. His sisters could have told him, but they kind of looked at him. Oh, who is this dark cloaked figure with shining red hands from which emit dark energies? Surely he is not a friend of ours, but they see that he is an elf, so they're kind of conflicted. And instead of killing him, obviously they can't, because he is immortal, cursed to be with Hadum, they just scoot him out of Camasilv. They led him to the wolves into the Northern Steppe, essentially, to be devoured or whatever happens to him. He's just left alone once more. And that speaks more to the injury, because he recognizes those figures as sisters. And it kind of makes sense for him to even make that connection, but yet even his sisters abandoned him. So now this is twice the insult to Caphras' character. And
this gives really big Gul'dan vibes.
Absolutely. He is really just the individual. You can't say Gul'dan, because he wasn't the crippled outcast who lacked all purpose and then found the fell. No. He was a very prominent individual who took the steps needed. You could say he is more Illidan in this particular point, and then he is rejected.
Oh yeah, true, yeah. Rejected by his own people, that makes sense.
Indeed. So they left him out at the prayer wolves, and nothing happens. You know, the feather wolves, I mean, what could they possibly do? So he gets to a merchant's wagon. Somehow, whatever he had to do, and he is now on a merchant's wagon, and he's traveling across the world. Now, the Caphras journal just simply jumps to, hello, we are in Valencia, right? But that's not really what happens. See, Caphras's journey is not like this. He is everywhere at this point. He goes potentially into Calphion for a bit, whatever Calphion is at that time. We know for a sure that he goes into Serendia. There's, you know, he does things there. We know, and this is actually lore Grimm of literally a few months ago, that, well, he has connections to the Knights of Dawn. And me and you, yeah, remember when we watched this trailer, me and you together, of the Origin of Ancient Light in Calphion, where we fight Belmorn, and Orwin says Caphras? Well, the Origin of Ancient Light is a machination of the Knights of Dawn. So, and you know, Orwin to say Caphras, and for him to speak directly to her through the Origin of Ancient Light, that is also a thing. So we know for a fact that Caphras's dealings are not simply him going from Camasilv traveling all the way to Valencia. We know that to be factual. Whether or not on his way back he did it, you know, all of it is theory. But nonetheless, the impact of Caphras is yet to be seen into our world, because he is right now just traveling. What homie does after is what really matters. So he is a wanderer at this point, who holds promises of great power. Think of him, you know, he's a Hadum servant at this point. His only purpose is, and his obsession is, to bring forth the dark god into our world. That is what he wants to do. And you can kind of see the trauma of Caphras in this very important moment, is to talk about what it is to be an elf in our mythos. An elf without mother is nothing. They need a god. They cannot function without one. They are lost without one. This is one of the tragedy, in my opinion, of the elves in particular, because when Mother Sylvia is gone, they are like lost children. And they are, in fact, children. They are engineered as if to be as such. And for a Caphras to have to denounce his god Sylvia, his goddess Sylvia, and then to go into another dark deity is just so natural to the core of what an elf is. As I say, put your heart to it and you kind of understand why he does it. It's like, Mother Sylvia abandoned me. The god eyed, which I almost summoned, was about to kill us all. He feels like he has to redeem himself, in a sense. And Hadum as if gave him, like fed on him in his despair of what he was about to do. And he empowered him. But however...
Yeah. You would confide in a god that gives you something, right?
Exactly. He just found purpose. And elves need to find purpose. The Grana elves find purpose in the protection of Camasilv. The Ahibs find purpose into avenging, what happened to them, essentially, onto the Camasilvian elves. And the Luthragon's purpose is to fight against Hadum for Mother Sylvia. All of this is all tied towards the goddess Sylvia. So, Caphras is, however, not a Hadum-infested creature. He is a Hadum-empowered creature. The Hadum infestation of the soul and mind, which we know, which has, I think it was like 5 or 6 stages, and all of them are very vividly described. Like the first one, you don't even know that he is within you, and then you start to despair, and then it corrupts your soul and it leaves you into a husk, and then right as you're about to perish, he bestows power on you, and you get driven mad by how strong you are. And the trick to Hadum is that you can always forfeit him, yet nobody does it. That is the power of Hadum, because it plays into the nature of greed and desire for power. So the Hadum infestation is essentially this, of the soul and mind. The barrier of infestation question, if you guys want to get that in game, where you get the Kazarka AP, DP, and HP journal, I guess you could call it a journal, although it's quests, speaks about this in very big detail. So Caphras is approaching Valencia, and on his way, he is an individual who is like a prophet, is it? He kind of behaves like this. I bring forward the new god of this world. I will be the salvation. I will usher in Vuhura Kaheliak, and you will, conquer this world in his name, and he will bestow power. Of course, in a world which is ridden by black spirits, and they live very well here because all of it is greed, this plays very well. Very, very well. And he stumbles upon a group of people, in particular known, Grim, as the Cadres.
I love Cadres.
Oh, guys, for everybody that is watching here, Grim is currently doing, God knows why, a challenge. Even he explains it to me, and I still don't know why he's doing it. A challenge where he gets almost gear capped by farming on seasonal Cadres, and I think you have 3 out of 6 Deboricas right now, I think, something like this.
Yeah, nearly 4.
Nearly 4. Do you have your Sovereigns, Black Stars?
Everything else is done, yeah.
Jesus Christ. And all this while farming Cadres. So you could say that Grim is in fact Caphras in a sense. You could kind of say.
Oh, I wish.
But, ladies and gentlemen, Cadres would be, the Cadre followers are essentially becoming Caphras followers. All of them are going to really go deep into Caphras' entirety of what he preaches. And they would not just follow him in the sense of for the power. No. They see him probably in the same way how he sees Hadum, as a piece of salvation. And they're not just loyal to him because of his power. No, they're loyal to him because of just, I guess they also need a figure, a leader, and Caphras becomes this. In a typical fashion, Caphras is an individual that infiltrates, and he does this very well. He moves all the way throughout the red desert of Valencia, and, gets to the capital, Valencia. And, of course, Caphras being Caphras, he wears a visage. This is considering what Caphras says, how strong he is, considering how empowered he is by his god, the fact that he is immortal. The elves kick him out of Camasilvia. It almost makes you wonder, why isn't Caphras being diabolical at this point, and why isn't he just murdering everything and everybody that doesn't do him any justice? So this is going to be a very important thing to understand, is that Caphras' idea is not to randomly, spontaneously kill people. That doesn't do anything. His purpose is to get people to despair and to get Hadum into our world. That is his purpose, nothing more. So despite the fact that Caphras is exceptionally strong. He is not an individual that wishes to kill, which is super, super important, or at least for now, he isn't. So, he gets to Valencia, and obviously he infiltrates, he becomes very known with the royal family of Valencia, and he gets to really meddle around, he gets to study, he gets to use the observatories, probably go to the books, to the scholar types of things, right? He is a sponge that wants to soak knowledge. Everything of our world that he could use, he must use. So Caphras goes throughout everything of this and starts gaining very big popularity. Now Valencia is a hub of everything that was going on there. So you have cadres here, you have other bits and pieces over there, you get the entirety of the idea. And it's a very popular trade route because obviously the Red Desert harbors so much of those black stones. So somewhere along the lines, we do not know precisely when, Caphras knows of the Black Spirit. We know for a fact that he does. But something very interesting that he himself finds is scrolls, Grimm. Some very important ancient scrolls. And those scrolls are fortune-telling, or rather future-telling scrolls. But however, they are older than when Caphras arrived into this world, and the scrolls predict an arrival of a very shadowy and a very menacing figure who will manipulate, orchestrate, and he will be a menace to the world. Now, this is one of those particular times where we know time travel in video is true, and it's fact, and it's a thing, and we do not know if whether or not this is the reason for it, but think about it. He is gaining favors left and right. He is an infiltrator, he is a manipulator, Caphras, and he goes around very well. The royal family doesn't like this. To have someone so powerful challenge a rule or gain influence is kind of a no-no. Really, it is a no-no. So, here's what happens. They seize Caphras, and for him, Grimm, they create a jail.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
For him, they create a jail. And this jail is, well, it's known as Pilaku jail.
The treasure map's in there.
The treasure map's in there. And also, we're going to talk about that treasure map in a bit. But see, the Pilaku jail, I'm not entirely sure if it is created for the purpose of Caphras or it was just named at the time of this. It was probably just a jail with not that much importance to it, but Caphras was flung in it. And Caphras says at one particular time during the quest chain for his journal, he says the jail which they created. So that kind of hints potentially of them creating it for him. Now, here's the thing. So you are a Hadum follower who mustn't kill, because that serves no purpose for what you are brought into Idana for. Your purpose is to bring Hadum. Your purpose is not to murder everybody, because if you murder everybody, you don't get to bring anybody. So this is a little bit interesting. And think of what the Pilaku jailers have at their disposal. So you are Caphras, the Immortal, and you are a Pilaku jail, and the royalty edicts massive tortures on Caphras, right?
You can't die.
You cannot die. You're literally every interrogator's wet dream. They can experiment on you with the most hideous and heinous devices ever imaginable. If you guys ever go and farm the map in Pilaku jail, there are big iron maidens out there called the Caphras torture device. These are not torture devices created by Caphras. No, these are torture devices created for Caphras. so the thing is, people they're not really that aware. Oh, this is a torture device created by Caphras, so people get tortured here better. No, he was the person getting tortured, and he says it as following. Many disciples gather around me, calling themselves the cadres, yet with my growing influence so too grew the number of those who viewed me with disdain. The royal family was amongst them. Throughout their machinations I was cast into the depths of Pilaku jail. They sought my death, they sought my death, fearing the power I had amassed. But under the grace of Hadum, I was rendered immortal. No matter how many times I was slain, I rose again, enduring their cruel tortures day after day. So, this is weird to me. No matter in what predicament you are, why don't you just bust out of there?
Yeah, you could have just fucking clicked his fingers like Thanos and killed them all.
Literally, Caphras can snap you out of existence, and he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it. And this is one of the things which do not add up with his character, and we do not know, still to this day, why didn't he just bust out? But think of what he would do if he would to bust out. And I kind of argument this point is following. If Caphras were to just murder everybody and snap into oblivion, the entirety of Valencia would come after him. All of a sudden, he's a wanted man throughout the entirety of the world. He is not trustworthy. He it's probably he calculated this, I should endure because it's better for the plan. And I don't like this. This is the only time Caphras is ever lacking, by the way, just here in Pilaku. But I think PA just really wanted to write a very grim story on Caphras.
What if a jail is the perfect environment to have despair thrive?
That is true.
Maybe that's why.
That is true, but it's not. While it is, in fact, everybody despairs in a jail, of course, when you're never going to get out. It's a hub for despair. But despair is not just what brings Hadum. Sacrifice does. It's a culmination of things. It's a ritual of all matters. You need the blood and despair, right? This is what you need. And I don't know, he probably could have summoned there. We don't know. It's the only time Caphras ever lacks. But let's continue onward by Caphras' life in Pilaku jail. Now, he's been put through essentially what I like to call torture Olympics. It's everything that you could possibly imagine was done to him. They probably got bored, really. They probably got bored. And Caphras expresses it as such in his journal. He says, "Each day I endured tortures more excruciating than the very fires of hell, writhing in unending agony. I often found myself wishing that this undying life had never been bestowed upon me, that the divine power granted by my God had never touched my soul. Such blasphemous thoughts plagued me countless times each and every single day." That's very interesting because it gets to build up Caphras' enduring into our world based on something similar that he went in Elvia. In Elvia, he faced betrayal. Here, he faces betrayal. He faces torture. And a thing which we do not know, again, is why he chooses to endure this torture. There is something very wrong with this. And he continues and says the following, "And then, as the red-hot iron seared my flesh for what felt like the 1,000th time, a sudden turn of fate occurred. A masked band of warriors emerged from the shadows, swiftly subduing the wicked guards and overseers. The Cadres come to rescue Caphras." And Caphras is so fumbling at this point, to the point where he credits Hadum for this. He says, "My God and Lord Hadum has not forsaken me." So they escape this hell which he describes, and into a secret sanctuary very close to Pilaku, they manage to make their escape. That sanctuary is Muquin. So, if you think about it, Caphras is actually a very good red player at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
He is a red player, and they go into Muquin, and this is the sanctuary where they escape from. Then Caphras makes his way back into our world. He stops by Tarif. Tarif is going to be a very important place. The disciples of Caphras, known as the Cadres, who are still currently, even till this day, they're still disciples of Caphras. They have not switched loyalties with him. We know for a fact that Caphras has told them about the Black Sun ritual. The Black Sun ritual is this particular despair and sacrifice, the harvest of despair and the sacrifice of life to usher in Hadum. In the same way how summon Kazarka in our world, basically to all of those people whose throats are going to be slit in sacrifices, you need flesh to create flesh. We kind of think that the same thing would go for Hadum. To usher in Hadum into our world, you need flesh of people. He leaves the Cadres. And it's like an edict of his, like a Caphras order. You will never stop pursuing the Black Sun ritual to appear. No matter what cost you, you will keep on doing it. This is what he leaves his followers with as a task. And throughout different tribulations and everything that Caphras does, he finds himself eventually into Balanos. This is where the player knows of Caphras. The very first time the player ever hears of him is literally under 5 minutes of the brand new reworked quest chain, where Caphras is being mentioned instantaneously onto one of the slates. And here is where it gets very interesting. See, the slates, as Laffy says, is depicting Caphras' arrival to the Kron Castle a long time ago. This is probably roughly, 120 to 150-ish, plus minus something, years ago. And they depict Caphras' arrival, but Laffy measures them and he does some sort of whatever he does, and he dates them to be at the very least 300 years old. So this is another time of someone traveling from the past warning of Caphras' arrival. Something very, very important and very, very interesting here. So, the trick of Caphras, of course, what it is, infiltration, and, just go out there and do what you're supposed to do to usher in the god which you serve. So he goes throughout the Kron Kingdom. At the point, by the way, the Kron Castle is this super magnificent structure. What we see of the Kron Castle is kind of like just the ground floor and the beginning of it. It probably towered so much high above it. The Kingdom of Balanos was something impressive. Like their own culture, the altar of Vagris was looking so much different. Everything that you see as structure there was actually big. It was a very well developed kingdom. So the Kron Castle is infiltrated by Caphras, and he plays into the king Bartali III at the time. His old name was Agris Bartali, but they have a new name for him. I'm sorry, I totally forgot the new name. They reworked that. But whatever the new name is, he's still Bartali III. And yes, he is related to Igor Bartali. Yes, he is his great-great-grandfather or something like this. So Bartali III is obsessed with something. He's obsessed with immortality. He wants to live and rule forever, like a typical king in the BDO scene. If you've been a little bit familiar with our past episode of Roseka, yeah, people are kind of evil. Kings are not really good in our world. So Caphras, of course, plays into this. Oh my god, I'm an immortal individual granted by my god, and he goes and plays the role so well. With Caphras infiltrating over at Bartali III, he promises him that he will become immortal, and he says, my god has granted me immortality, and you can be granted immortality as well. And he says the following: I convey to him the words of my perfect and everlasting God, and demonstrated the divine power to substantiate my message. Caphras literally deletes himself in front of Igor Bartali, in front of Bartali III. And as he does, this is so badass, by the way. He just totally offs himself, collapses to the ground, only to rise again. And the king is sold. Deal whatever you need, daddy. You get it.
How many babies do you need?
How many babies, maidens, and everything. So the king has this unwavering trust in Caphras, and Caphras says the following: Bartali III had placed his unwavering trust in me. According to our grand design, a massive altar was erected within the walls of Kron Castle. The plan was simple yet sinister: to offer the castle all its inhabitants as living sacrifices to summon my god. If successful, my mission would be complete. Here is where it gets very brutal.
It can always get darker.
It can always get darker. And it is so freaking crazy because people don't understand the magnitude of Hadum. Like when we speak about Hadum, everybody, oh, he is a presence ever lingering, ever around us. But people don't know that Hadum almost got in a few times in. Like he peered, literally looked into our world. And Caphras almost did it. Because this altar, he would light it up and everyone would be sacrificed in the most brutal fashion. They would turn into smudges of blood and they would just floating, and it would be something that I envisioned as pure shock, horror, and terror as the sky turns pitch black, as the dark sun arises from the altar, and the words which every single living being in Balanos hears: "My son, I am here." And I get chills every time. I get chills every time because, you know, he did it. The ritual is up, and he hears his god first, which he has longed for God knows how many years he has traveled already in our world, to hear "My son, I am here." The voice of Hadum echoed, heard by all present. Those who did not die instantaneously at the whispers lost their minds within that same instant. You could imagine what it is to look up to the sky, see this dark sun, hear this voice, and possibly, who knows, two eyes gazing upon the world. That is eldritch horror on paramount magnitude. So
that's sick. I want to join them.
Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute. Lawful evil is not fuel. You're batshit crazy evil, Grim. You know, Caphras at this point is not our guy. Safe to say. He is not our guy. So, you know, everyone is not just terrified. Everybody is like shocked. Because this is not for mortal eyes to see. You have summoned what is the equivalent of an eldritch deity, a god which devours and knows nothing but devouring. This is what Hadum does. He wants, especially Elezra recently told us into the Gladios, he wants to bring everything to the void, whatever the void is. So, you know, at this point, the king is like alive and he witnesses this, and we're not sure how he managed to, you know, go unscathed into this, but he is like, what have I done? He snaps back to his senses and he sees this. Now earlier into this entire, right before they light the altar up, this is the first time we know Caphras is kind of getting a little bit too evil here. Before they light the altar up and everything for sacrifice, the king's royal guard, or the captain of the royal guard. He had a very cool name. I forgot about it. Forgive me, everybody. But he spoke adamantly against Caphras doing this. And the king ordered Caphras to kill him. But Caphras didn't just kill him, Grim. He slaughtered the fuck out of him and resurrected him.
Caphras.
Into a literal, like, this is one of those necromancy moments in video, and this is why I believe Caphras will eventually beat the necromancer class of video, some sort of a resurrector summoner types of thing, and he kills the crap out of the number one knight in the country, rises him up. So here's the motifs, so he doesn't speak against the king. So that's like, you are sinister.
That is sick, dude.
You are sinister.
I love Caphras.
I love him so much. And the altar lights up and everything that happens. And something, you know, the king snaps out of it and he looks into what's going on. And he is like, enough of this. And he grabs a spear from the closest knight he possibly can. And the king himself, Bertali III, while Caphras is channeling all of his emotion and everything that he can so that the ritual continues. You know, he's probably in some sort of a trance at this point. Yeah. Or in a very sadistic high out of hearing his god's voice to him and everybody, right? I could imagine that he is probably...
Can you imagine, like, do you know, when you shout Sangoon, it's Hadum.
Oh, yeah.
He's in that trance.
Exactly. So, King Bertali charges towards Caphras and literally stabs him throughout Caphras' entire body with the spear which he picked up. And Caphras snaps out of it as from this trance or whatever spell casting that he is doing, and immediately, as he does this, the altar explodes with such force to the point where the Kron Castle, from ground up, flies into almost as if the hemisphere of the world. The explosion was so massive to the point where it toppled the entirety of the kingdom. And all of this because of Bertali III stabbing Caphras amidst this channel. So this kind of gets you an understanding of how unstable this particular magic is. And Caphras was all about, keeping this in check. So he couldn't even react to this, probably. So he gets stabbed, the altar explodes, and this is the infamous Kron Castle explosions, which brings the end of the Bertali kingdom. From now on, Balanos is just a region under Serendia, pretty much. Or if it has some sort of autonomy, which it does, it's not entirely under Serendia. From it's peasant bag end, pretty much. It is just poor beyond poor, and it will never recover from it because everyone in the kingdom died. Who knows how much time passes? And such an explosion probably ripped Caphras to atoms. Yet he, of course, being cursed by Hadum with immortality, he would, collect himself. And he says the following upon him getting to his senses. The explosion consumed everything and everyone in his vicinity, leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. So, as the cataclysmic explosion has swept through, leaving naught but desolation in its wake, the soldiers who arrived belatedly could not bring themselves to gaze upon the harrowing scene. This is essentially soldiers after the explosion coming through, who knows from where. Because think about it, probably Serendia heard it, probably Calphion saw it, probably Medea saw it. It was a cataclysmic level event for Balanos. Caphras begins to say, not a single soul save for mine drew breath amidst the carnage. And he was grievously wounded beyond, obviously we know this. But he begins to crawl over to the altar, trying, despite everything that happened to him, he is still determined to restart the altar. And right as he is about to do it, right as he's about to literally bring another Kronstone explosion to the world, another guard comes in, and as he is crawling on his fours with just one arm or whatever, however he manages to do this, he gets stabbed once more, and his body is shoved to fall off of the remains of the Kron Castle into the sea. So he couldn't reach the altar. He plummeted from the cliff's edge into the cold sea below with the spear embedded at his side. Now,
where does he end up, I wonder?
Ooh, well, he ends up well, actually, Grim. He ends up well. He has been through far too much, Caphras. He has been through far too much. No soul can handle what he has been through. I am willing to admit nobody in BDO has had it worse than Caphras. On an emotional level, on a physical level, he has been through the worst the world could possibly offer. He pretty much survived an atom bomb. In reality, he did. And he drifts away 50 years, Grim, into the cold sea at the Kron Seas and the Kron Islands.
I was expecting him to be straight Ilia, but okay.
Oh, no. He does go into Ilia 50-ish, something like this, years later. And who knows how he looks? He is probably butt naked, as far as we're aware. I mean, yeah, you got exploded. Probably your clothes aren't anywhere. He is probably literally stark naked. So, a woman finds him, drifting across the shore, and she looks at this. I mean, let's be honest, he's an elf, probably sexy as fuck. Even if he is
probably
evil,
still got an 8-pack and everything.
He is probably rocking that 8-pack, looking very sublime as a manipulative individual would. Hell, he probably struck a pose onto the beach as the girl found him. And that girl, of course, we're just joking, but Caphras was in no shape to do anything. For 50 years, he couldn't even begin to regenerate himself. He was just drifting left and right at the bottom of the sea up until eventually it spewed him at Ilia Island. And I imagine this, and this is never described, but I imagine at this point Caphras is like, I'm done. I can't continue. How can you continue after this? So he goes with the spear still within him, and probably this is why he couldn't regenerate, was because that spear is there. And he is found by a woman, a loving and caring woman who did not, for the first time ever he experiences this, who did not, ever judge them for what he looked like or whatever he is. And he says the following: "There, with the aid of the islanders and the tender care of a woman, I regained my senses. Captivated by the warmth of her, who nursed me back to health, I abandoned Hadum's mission and had begun to embrace the life of a mortal." Caphras is done with Hadum. At this point, Caphras he's like, what? Screw you, Hadum. You have almost made me destroy Elvia. You almost made me destroy this world as well. And I am not going to go through this. I cannot handle this. And remember when I speak about this infestation of Hadum, everybody can reject it. You can reject Hadum at any point. Just nobody does because of the power which comes with it. It is the drunkenness of it. So
yep.
He is PTSD, bro. He is PTSD. And PTSD is him. He has been through far too much. And he speaks so fondly of this, and I wish to just read it throughout the entire thing here. "For a fleeting moment, I cast aside the horrendous memories of that fateful day." He's talking about the Kron Castle explosion. "I lived not as a Luthragon, nor as a savior, but as a mere mortal, leading a simple yet joyous life, with my beloved wife and our beloved daughter, who bore the best of both of us." Of course, we're talking about Orwin. Orwin is now into the picture, and Caphras, we kind of jump here. Caphras doesn't say too much, but the Ilian denizens, they dislike him heavily. The denizens of Ilia, they dislike him, but it's just because his wife is protective and loving and caring. He continues to do everything there. And they have a house in Ilia, and they're living there, and Caphras is a helpful individual. He's not an evil guy. Hell, probably still dark energies emanate from him. I mean, you can't save yourself from this. He says that he lives as a mortal, but in fact, he doesn't age. So we believe that the Hadum curse is still up there. He begins to slowly forget Elvia. He begins to heal. And he has a human elvish daughter named Orwin who will accompany us into the future. But, Caphras is kind of in a little bit of a predicament of happiness. And because this is Black Desert Grim,
it always get darker.
It can always get darker. Long ago did the Kron Castle explosion happen, and one night Caphras finds himself turning and twirling in bed, and he cannot just find rest. And he rewinds all of the memories that he had, felt. He reminds himself of Elvia, of the comrades which he abandoned for his own pursuit of having a calm life. And he probably has a very big moral dilemma. My brothers are dying in a world which is my own world, but yet I am here enjoying love. And, that's a little bit of it's selfish if you think about it. But he has earned it in times beyond. He can just chill. But of course, he describes it as such: "For a moment fear gripped me, my body trembling uncontrollably, my mind a blank slate. But unlike before, I steeled myself. With one last look at my peaceful slumbering wife and daughter, I hurriedly left our home, my family, my people, my everything. I had to protect them all." So Caphras now is on a different trajectory. The evil Caphras, which we know, kind of gone. Whatever was evil Caphras, right now is morally great Caphras. Like the pendulum is swinging backwards. So Caphras would he would go back from Ilia. He would travel into the kingdom of Balanos. He would see the ruins of Kron Castle himself. He would look into what he did to this kingdom. He toppled an entire kingdom. This particular tree, which he speaks about, the black sacred tree sapling, had taken root within the castle. Just as I feared, Hadum had indeed crossed into our world. While the Kron Castle explosion happened, a tree is sprouted there. And this is how we know for a fact the trees are portals. And a tree sprouted there, and Caphras collects the tree's sap. So he unearthed this tree. He picks it up, trying to resolve the issue which he created, trying to redeem himself. And he goes throughout this. And as he plucks this tree, Hadum attacks him so viciously, and he says the following: "And in that instant, visions of immense pain and hellish torment unfolded before me, which each step I took, a fear akin of death gripped me. Yet I could not abandon my quest for the sake of my wife and daughter left behind at home." And he uprooted this entire tree, and he is, at this point, Hadum is pissed. Like, he is absolutely pissed. So he goes to the nearby village, he grabs whatever goods he possibly can, and contains the sapling of the dark tree, which holds, Grim, Hadum infestation, Hadumish influence, this particular sap there. We go into Caphras trying to resolve the very big issue, but in a very smart way this time around. From now on, Caphras is not, okay, how do I summon Hadum? From now on, Caphras is, how do I prepare this world for Hadum? But Caphras doesn't know that this preparation has long been already begun. The world knows of Hadum as much as he knows of Hadum. The world is actually well aware black spirits are here, and Caphras locks himself in a cave, in a study he creates, and he finds ancient ruins, which are very particularly near Bree ancient tree ruins, the Caphras cave. He locks himself there, I don't want to say some stupid year, but I think he is there for like 12 to 20 years in that cave, and he doesn't exit. Something along these lines. He never goes out. He is inside there, and he says the following: "Time slipped through my fingers as I strove to banish Hadum's power." So he doesn't know how long he spent there himself, but we kind of feel, just based on the period of Ilia Island and between what happens next, which of course, if it's BDO, it can always go dark.
Yeah.
We kind of figure out that it's something along these lines. Well, Caphras delves into alchemy in profound manner, and he is pushing for our world's knowledge like no tomorrow. He really is a very knowledgeable individual at this point. And a very important thing here to note is that he finds a very interesting way to cleanse this sapling from the Hadum influence. He finds the most profound piece of knowledge on his own, without the help of anybody, Grim. And he finds the rules of Black Desert Online. And I know this might sound a little bit weird to everybody listening, but the rule of Black Desert Online, Grim, is what? A darkness can only be battled with a stronger or deeper darkness. This is the motto of our world in its entirety. Caphras finds about this alone without anybody helping him, which means that he is at the forefront of everything currently. What he does is, in this Hadum-infested sap, which he found from the tree at the Kron Castle, he plunges inside the energies of a black spirit, and with an instant, a bright flash emits away from it, and both of the energies shoot away from that particular sap to create a crystal stone, as if, which he names a solar stone. Grim, do you know what the solar stone is?
It's used to enhance boat gear, no?
It is a solar stone, but it just has that name because we don't use solar stone name. He creates the Caphras stone. That is the Caphras stone. It's literally.
Oh, I should have known that.
And it was kind of, remember that Agris episode where I was like, fever, and you couldn't guess the first one to it. Kind of.
It says that on the stone itself too. It's on the description.
It says onto the description, indeed, commonly referred to as a solar stone, but in reality, people name it after its creator, Caphras. So this particular solar stone emits the brightest energies and can be used as a supplement for the connection with the Black Spirit. It is a piece of stone that does not corrupt the individual which uses it. So Caphras revolutionizes the game with this discovery. And this is not the first thing that he is going to do. And for everybody that hates Caphras stones, yes, in reality, Caphras is responsible for the Caphras stones. Jehi Kim did nothing wrong. Okay, I'm just saying. But Caphras continues with his researches, and he finds so many, it's like he finds so many discoveries in that cave. In that cave, he recollects throughout the years of what he knows in Pilaku. He marks the entirety of the adventure map. The adventurer map, guys, is actually Caphras's map. We collected throughout his whatever he's doing into the Valencia regions. We discover the pieces which he has created. The adventurer's map. It's of his doing. So Caphras is, in a world known as Black Desert, Grim, and if it's Black Desert, it can always go dark. Yeah. As he goes throughout creation of the Solar Stone, and a harrowing feeling comes towards him, and he was overwhelmed initially by joy, yet that very moment he heard a voice, louder and graver than ever before, and that voice utters to him, "My son, I bestowed upon you eternal life, and yet why do you raise your sword against me? Even if you persist in brandishing your blade, nothing will change. I have already arrived in this world, led by your hand." And Caphras is confused at this point. What do you mean, led by your hand? I uprooted the tree which sat there. We had a little disagreement on that, don't you remember, Hadum? But he forgot about something very important, Grim. He had followers to whom...
He had cadre followers who were to usher him in.
Who would work tirelessly throughout the last, 50, 60, 70 years or so into doing what Caphras told them, and they would be religious and zealous about this. So what happens is he gets out of this cave of his, known as the Caphras Cave. They already named him. They already named the cave after him. Like, he got in about 20 years ago. Haven't seen him since. He's probably there, And he goes out and he sees a dark sky. He looks around him and he sees people with dark energies collapsing to the ground, suffocating. He sees a world in turmoil, and as he turns around and observes, he sees the dark sun, for the cadres have raised it. And it is not just the dark sun, Grim. This dark sun was so big and so huge, Land of the Morning Light saw it.
Holy.
Land of the Morning Light were looking past the horizon, and a piece of knowledge describes this as this green hue, and all of a sudden rain would start pouring and this dark energy would start seeping into the world. This is a connection to Lomo, by the way. Literally, they speak about the Black Sun ritual, how they saw it themselves, and they didn't know what it was. Obviously, it's on the other side of the world. This is what the cadres did. They did.
I wonder what their reaction was. They're like, "Oh my darn."
Well, they don't have Hadum there, but they have their own versions of the Black Spirit. But remember, everybody, Lommel is canonically a spin-off. They just connected every once in a while for the drama, which I just did. Yeah, they saw it and they were like, "Oh my god, this rain started pouring of acid shit." So, exactly. So, Caphras at this point this is just another L for him. And he is like, "I just created a solar stone which can literally expel you from this world." And he does this via the Black Spirit. If you've been in the Caphras Cave, guys, you go right before you get to the Caphras Chambers, onto the left you see this ancient slate from which Black Spirits emerge in rapid like they're super fast, emerging, shooting throughout the ground. Caphras' plan was to infest the world with black spirits at this point, because the black spirit is a deeper darkness which can be conquered compared to Hadum's. Hadum's cannot be conquered in his eyes, even though he is a prime example of rejecting it, and the Barrier of Infestation talks about being able to reject Hadum's power. Everybody can, yet nobody does, because greed. So what he does is he fastens the Idana creation process in reality. So he is in shock and horror because he has now everything to lose, Grim. Everything to lose. Where before he was doing this, onto the premise of Hadum will not kill the Luthragon and Elvia if Caphras serves them, which obviously Hadum lied about. We know that happening afterwards. Specifically, Archer lore, teaser, Archer lore is very prominent on this. He's like, what do you mean this guy took a deal? We've been attacked ever since. In fact, it doesn't stop. It's more prominent. So, yeah, Hadum lied to Caphras, which is another insult to him. So, Caphras has a lot to lose, Grim. He has a wife.
A daughter and a wife, yeah.
But, his daughter is not just a daughter. His daughter is a Luthragon. She has immunities. She has a stronger blood. She is a demigod, factually a demigod. Remember, guys, elves are daughters and sons of a goddess. In fact, they are demigods, but by the process of their creation, they might as well be an extension of godhood in reality. So Orwen is for sure a demigod. She's like, what was Hercules to Zeus? And he drops down to his knees and begs his god. And he says, please spare my wife and my daughter. I will offer up everything that I have. And it falls on deaf ears. So, his wife, unfortunately, Grim, perishes that day. Consumed by what is now known as the Calphion Plague, or the Black Plague, or the Dark Plague of Calphion. So he is at this point disappointed with himself. Of course, his wife perishes. He knows of this. He feels it somehow. We see this throughout the game. Caphras has an emotional connection with Orwen, which probably was also extended to his wife. So the moment she passed, he felt it. Kind of like the Jedi sense through the Force the passing of people. It's kind of like they feel it. And the balance scales are tipped in ways where his entire reality is crumbling around him. Everything that happens at this point is Caphras trying to undo his mistakes. So he went back to the Kingdom of Valencia. He observes what the Black Death has caused, the Black Sun ritual raised by the Cadres, and he is just, again, disgusted by what he has done. He warns everyone the truth of what the Black Sun ritual is. He tries to make amends with it. And he speaks the following: I warn the prophets, the military, and the royal family of this dire truth. The royal Nesser family, sensing the very existence of their nation at peril, dispatched their army in a desperate attempt, grasping at straws. Countless youths of Valencia sacrificed themselves for the greater cause. After a horrifying battle, we shattered the Black Sun and destroyed the altar. Then, gradually, the Black Death began to wane. Yet, the voice kept calling out to me from somewhere, some place. This kind of goes a little bit into a little bit of a full circle. Caphras returns to his captors, this time clear with heart. And he's like, if you do not trust me on this, we will die. I was an evil guy before, but I want you to trust me on this one. So they listened to him. Somehow, he is no longer Caphras, the immortal alchemist wearing a visage. He is Caphras in his pure form, going there, trying to make amends. And the next one is super important. I'm going to just read the entirety of the thing, Grim, because if it's Black Desert, it can always go wrong, and here it goes very wrong. Hadum's voice. Remember when I told you something earlier? Hadum's voice proclaiming her arrival. Did you just hear that? Proclaiming her arrival. Her arrival in this land echoed ceaselessly within my soul. The tragedy that began by my hand must be ended by my hand alone. After endless wandering and relentless research, typical Caphras, I research a singular conclusion. Darkness can only be vanquished by a greater darkness, just as the Black Spirit purified the power of the Black Tree. In my quest to find a darkness to stand against Hadum, I realized that I must resurrect the power of Kazarka, the mighty demon god who once brought ruin to the ancient Orzeka Empire. To break the seal off the true Kazarka, not more false incarnations, I must venture into the unknown rifts of the ancient Kazarka shrine. Though I may be forever ensnared in the abyssal darkness, I pray that one day another hero will rise to save the world and my daughter. And this is one of the first finales of Caphras. See, remember a long time ago I spoke to you and I keep on telling everybody, when we summon Zark and Surrender Shern, you summon a smithereen. You summon a little bit of him. You summon whatever you could offer up for how much power he's willing to give you. If you summon Kazarka himself, the god of what was hope in Orzeka, this world, Kazarka could just simply snap, and Hadum influence will be expelled from the world. Caphras understands Kazarka and the nature of the summonings, and he is, at this particular point in time, he travels all the way back to his footsteps. He goes to the Crypt of Resting Thoughts, where the Ahibs are not very fond of him. He meets the Sefer Ahibs at this point. Bear in mind, this is recent lore, probably, I don't know, 9-10 years ago-ish, maybe, along these lines. So, maybe even shorter, maybe 6, maybe 7 years ago. So what happens is, Grim, he researches Orzeka like no other. And the elves, the Ahibs there, are very hateful of him. Caphras understands that in order for him to be able to go to the place in between where Kazarka is sealed, he has to do something. And he has to create what key can unlock that particular place, known as the Gem of Imbalance. The Gem of Imbalance is created by literally going throughout the keys used to access the other worlds. Those keys are not reality keys like the literal sense. A branch of the Kamasilv, the Cup of Oblivion, which Hexamoa used to curse the children, by plucking their teeth in. This is particulars. Yeah, gulp. Go ahead and check the Orzeka episode, everybody. You're going to be shocked. A branch of the Turasil, right? And, something that Tunta actually has as a creation, the god Tunta, which predicts the entirety of the Orzekan mythos. So, Caphras, however, understands that the elves are not going to snap a branch for him. The Ozilita elves are not going to snap a branch of him. He is never going to get the Cup of Oblivion. No shot he does. He doesn't even know where to probably even begin to look for the Tunta item. So he understands that he has to fake it till you make it. So, to create all of those things, he derives a plan. He analyzes it. Okay. Despair summoning into this world creates trees. All right. Those trees could probably be, a branch can be snapped with those trees. He creates this interesting copy of the Gem of Imbalance, and Caphras is in front here with a very big moral dilemma. And this is that morally gray side of things. See, the Black Star at this point has already arrived. The Black Star arrived 9 years ago, canonically speaking. And it brought devastation to Star's End, but Caphras was so adamant on summoning Kazarka into our world and going throughout the entirety of this thing that he probably made a few connections with the Knights of Dawn, which are now the Shadow Knights, right? So they have their own thing. Orzeka is long gone, etc., etc., and the Shadow Knights fall to corruption under Belmorn to become Kazarka followers. And something very interesting here is that probably they were helping him a little bit. We don't know. Maybe he was a part of him. Kazarka. Caphras at this point is a little bit like Elezra. If you can serve his purpose, he's going to be aligned with you. That morally gray individual that pursues a goal. So he decides to do something horrific in Star's End and explode it. He creates a ritual which busts the entire zone apart. The explosion of Star's End is not the meteorite arriving. The meteorite had a crash site impact, but everybody around was like, oh, what is this? And then Caphras literally was like, I need to do this. I need despair to be able to create this copy of the Gem of Imbalance. So he creates it by exploding Star's End, sacrificing all the people to harvest this despair and create a very unstable version of the Gem of Imbalance, a very false copy. And you need to understand that the Gem of Imbalance is almost as if a godhood device itself. So to create a copy of it is impressive. But Caphras does not conclude here. He needs to get into what is known as the Altar of Blood, the place in between, a place which is used to access the abyss, this particular void place where Kazarka is being banished in. So he goes into the Altar of Blood, and as he gets in, the Gem of Imbalance shatters.
Oh,
so
unfortunate.
Now, what is the predicament Caphras is in? Just think about it for a moment. Caphras, the Immortal Alchemist, emphasis on the Immortal Alchemist, is trapped into the abyss with the literal, not an incarnation of Kazarka, with the literal Kazarka. Oh no.
Oh boy.
He can't catch a break. This is why I love him so much. He is a lament. He is a lament of the highest order and means. So this is the last time, Grim, we ever hear of Caphras. A few years ago, himself going into Stars and exploding and creating the Gem of Imbalance, getting inside the Altar of Blood, into the abyss or into the void where Kazarka is banished in, and he is there with him. And now, fast forward, Grim, we're gonna meet Caphras in Edania. And not just we're gonna meet him, he is actually an overlord of a castle. Now isn't that...
Yeah, I'd imagine it'd probably go something like, I know you're pissed, Zarka, but we need you, because Hadum's coming.
Kazarka is a being that has wisdom to him. He is not a being that... You know, he is not a being that is just a stupid monster boss demon god. No. He is a being he is sentient, above sentient. He has wisdom to him. But you need to understand that he is a god. And he works in ways where he doesn't care about you understanding them. But Caphras is a demigod, almost a godlike figure, because he is literally a son of a goddess. So probably an alignment can be had. So,
dude, I'm calling it now. Zarka's gonna be essentially what's the word? Redeemed, and he's gonna be our savior.
This is what I deep down inside in my entirety hope for, is for Caphras to be able to go through this plan, Grim. But you know, PA did a very big spoiler on us. We're going 1,000 years back. There is no reason to go 100 years back if we're gonna have the happy ending which we want. I think we're gonna lose. But see, the Caphras story extends over and beyond what I have just described today for us. For some reason, his remnants, the final remnant of Caphras, is in Dawnbreak. He was there, Grim. He was there. And while he was there, a particular, you know, the Knights of Dawn are from Dawnbreak, which is the original name of Mountain of Eternal Winter before it became this due to Libresca's demise. So Caphras was there, and he probably had a touch with the Knights of Dawn at the time, or probably ones which are not corrupted by Belmorn's influence. And there is a thing, Grim, known as the Origin of Ancient Light, which we spoke earlier about in the episode. The Origin of Ancient Light is something that can expel all evil. Yep. There's a particular individual who was looking for a device that could expel all evil, specifically Jordine. There is a popular theory right now that the origin of light, whatever it is, could in fact be Unix. And It's a theory. We don't know for sure, but it functions exactly the same. And what I'm saying is, if it looks like a duck and barks like and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. So,
Yeah.
Caphras's finale is supposed to be in Dawnbreak. So probably whatever happened in Demonlands, we will see. But the future holds so many questions about our favorite character, at least my favorite character in video. And this is Caphras. How did he get there? What happened with Xarka? But I'm going to tie this theory over here with something very important. Caphras is not alone in this abyss, Grim. There is a very, very important individual there with him. And that individual is a Valkyrie named Enslar. And this is one of those particular moments which right now Pearl Abyss are tying so well. And this is how we explain that Enslar is in the Demonlands, is because they met, they understood the predicament, and we think that they either found Xarka irredeemable and they did something, which is like, how the hell, all right? Or they struck a bargain with him in the same way how, because think of it, you are in the abyss with a god which is so unbelievably powerful that he was snapping people out of existence in Orzeka. Now, imagine you're in this abyss with him. It's a little bit of Dormammu, I have come to bargain, if you think about it. It's pretty much this, and it makes so much more sense for it to be like this. And Enslar, however, now kind of looks to be a little bit evil. Well, Caphras is not known to, let good meat go to waste, considering the fact that he has resurrected before. My personal theory is that essentially Enslar is in leagues with Caphras, and they managed to do something in that abyss together. So, but the Demonlands will tell us everything. But nonetheless, so far, this is what we know of Caphras. He is literally our potential salvation, which does not include Elezra. And now the big question is Elezra kind of upset with Caphras? Like, shouldn't she be like, okay, you're kind of messing up with my plans right now? Or is Caphras into the abyss and Elezra actually factually managed to steal the entirety of Caphras' soul? So what Caphras found was a husk, not worthy of his attention. You don't know. It's all theory. We'll know soon. We will know soon. I love Caphras so much, man. I love him so much.
He's such a good character.
Such a good character. All right, I think we wrap it up, Grim.
Yes, we need a whole episode on Caphras, I think.
What do you mean we need? We just did one.
Is there nothing else to tell? Or more?
No, nothing else. We pretty much covered the entirety of Caphras.
Oh,
yeah, okay. I know. But also, Grim, it's 1 hour and 30 minutes. It's 1 hour and 30 minutes, dude. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.
Later.